Hey, and welcome back to the Michael Cohen Show, where we are on our journey to 250,000 subscribers. Alrighty, my friends. So the other day, when I was doing Political Beatdown with my co-host, Ben Meiselas of the Midas Touch Network, Ben came out with this incredible question, right off the rip. And he turns around and he asks me, if during my tenure working for Trump at the Trump Organization, he was always this weird when I worked for him, and give him some examples of Donald saying something that was weird or being weird. Check out my reaction in this clip. I think you're going to find it fascinating.
Michael, let's just start with this question. Did you always know that Donald Trump was so profoundly weird, or has he leaned into this weirdness? Has that accelerated recently? Like when you were around him, I mean, we know the Von shits and pants, we know the smell, we've covered that ground. The weirdness, though, did you ever go home and be like, honey, this guy's weird, this guy's
Well,
weird?
he would regularly say things that were sort of odd, but not weird to the extent that we were saying. Look, I wrote about it in my book, Disloyal, where, for whatever the reason might be somewhat racist, myself, he, and a guy who was working for him at Mar-a-Lago, he manages the place. He's of German descent. He stopped our entire conversation, which was about getting money back for an act that was not going to be able to make it for New Year's. And it was a big act. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Celine Dion, because she wasn't feeling well. And he stops the entire meeting to turn around and to say, I bet your family, he was talking to the gentleman that works for him at Mar-a-Lago, chased Michael's family through the Red Forest. And I said to him, well, boss, my father is a Holocaust survivor. And he turns around and he goes, yeah. That's why I brought it up. I mean, that was weird. It was odd. It was racist for sure. But the weirdness that's going on now, this is a whole new look. A lot of people say to me, how did you work for, the guy for over a decade when, you have all these negative things to say? In hindsight, looking back, none of it really mattered. Some of it actually we used to think was almost funny. It was almost endearing because it was sort of wacky in its own way, but it didn't have a profound effect on anybody. We just would go back afterwards. We would laugh about it. Myself and the other members, of the Trump org, we would laugh about it and, shake our heads and, go on with our daily tasks and things that we needed to do. But when you start listening to the crazy shit that he and now JD Vance, who might be the weirdest guy in all of Washington, I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to end. I don't know where the middle is. I don't know when it'll be over, other than after the election when they lose. This is crazy stuff. I mean, talking about boats. He never talked about boats. The only boat I remember he ever talked about is many years ago. He had a casino boat that went under, but he talked about that as a boat. He also didn't like boats, to say, okay, great. He never talked about sharks. He didn't talk about electricity. Now you say, oh yeah, well, that's not really weird stuff, Michael, and yada, yada. Well, how about when he was anti-windmill? And so he would talk about how windmills were killing birds and that, by the tens of thousands a day, and that they're noisy and that they're these big, gigantic sort of buildings in the middle of a beautiful waterway. I mean, that was just sort of weird when he would talk about the birds being slaughtered, by these windmills and so on. He's taken it. Right now, they have taken weirdness to a whole nother dimension.
right? It's weird, but like there are some forms of weird that's like, oh, that's a weirdo, but they're creepy weird. They're serial killer vibes weird. That's the JD Vance. It's a type of weird. So I think you start with weird, weirdo, but they're a dangerous weird. I think it's important not to give them the power. They want to be called strong and alpha and authoritarian. They're the opposite of that. Alphas don't go around calling themselves alphas. This whole thing, this whole JD Vance new iteration of his identity, right? He's changed his name now 3 times. Just think about that. JD Vance, he's changed his name 3 times. And he's had 4 major personality changes. So he grew up as a gay child. And then he said, well, now I'm a hillbilly anti-Trumper. And then he became like kind of a right-winger, but still a never-Trumper. Then a full-fledged kind of MAGA Trumper. Those were the 4 different kind of phases of his life. And he's like, changed his identity so much. Go back and watch the interviews before he had the beard, and take a look at the interviews that he did when he was the anti-Trump fake hillbilly, even though he grew up in the suburbs of Cincinnati. And you look at it and you're like, this is still very weird because you're not what you even saying you are then. And so then you realize he changed his names. 4 months ago, he posted that he was like Googling like dolphin porn and it's like some weird stuff.
Hey everyone, first of all, thanks for watching. I mean, we're going to be posting daily episodes with reactions and talking about politics. We'll be talking about everything, in fact. So please like and subscribe. Join us on this journey.